Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Mugwump Tower, this is Albatross 1-3, requesting permission to land. Over.
I don't need a computer to tell me how to land a damn airplane.
6.
Heads-up display, check.
5,
Lasers, check.
4,
Particle beam, check.
3,
Photon bolts, check.
2,
Chair control, check.
1.
Let's do it.
Broadcasting from a secret underground location somewhere in Mos Eisley, this is the Docking Bay 77 podcast. Make yourself comfortable. The show is about to start. Hello and welcome to the Docking Bay 77 podcast. I am your host, Dayton Johnson. This is the fifth and last episode in part one of our Disney Through the Decades series. This time we travel to the 1970s. Joining me once again, we have Robert Burnett. Hello, Robert.
Hello. Thanks for having me again.
And Amber Lewis. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, 1970s. Let's hit some highlights for the 1970s. Not quite as dark as the last decade, but still some interesting things happen. So here we go. The U.S. invades Cambodia. Students murdered by the National Guard in Kent State. IBM introduces the floppy disk. The voting age is lowered to 18. The first email is sent across the network. Watergate, enough said. Israeli athletes killed at the Munich Olympics. Roe v. Wade. OPEC oil embargo. Nixon resigns and Ford steps up. The U.S. finally leaves Vietnam. Jimmy Carter is elected president. Viking 1 lands on Mars. The Jonestown mass suicide. The Kool-Aid. U.S. hostages are taken in Iran. USSR invades Afghanistan. 3 Mile Island melts down. And on a slightly better note, Thatcher becomes the British Prime Minister.
Better for who? We're going to talk about that later.
Meryl Streep. It was better for Meryl Streep. She
Yeah,
got an
exactly.
Oscar or something
There you
like.
There you go. But not quite as bad as nuclear melting down and burning it, whatever. Anyway.
I don't know. It's debatable for the Irish, I must say.
Anyway. All right. So, Amber, why don't you tell us what Disney was up to during the 1970s?
Well, I'm going to correct an omission because in 1974, I was born, people.
Well,
That was a seminal moment for the 70s.
Hey.
So let's start off there.
So do you want to be before or after OPEC and, the Cambodia and where do you
It's
fall
so
on that
funny.
scale?
Well, it's funny. In my baby book, there was a page where my mom had journaled about watching the Watergate hearings while she was 8.5 months pregnant with me.
That
And
explains so much. Now,
and a month before is when he resigned in August, and then
Nice.
I heralded in a new era. What can I say?
Nixon actually resigned on my mother's birthday, and they were having a big party for her at our house before they were all going to go out to dinner and celebrate her birthday. And I'm like, come see the TV. Oh my God, oh my God. And he doesn't. She goes, I knew he was a and she was just mad because he wrecked her birthday,
Right? Still my thunder. You could have done it the day before. Whatever.
Priorities. Anyway.
All right.
Never will forget that.
The Disney studios are still reeling from Walt's death. And so it was we're going to put some movies together, put on a happy face. But it was a transitional period. Not a lot of animated films. We had the Aristocats, Robin Hood, The Rescuers, and they put the Winnie the Pooh shorts together to make The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. It's a full-length 90-minute film. Live action, for those of us that were born in this decade, these are very important films, and we will not hear anything about them, but they're a little uneven. We had Bedknobs and Broomsticks, Escape to Witch Mountain, The Apple Dumpling Gang, Freaky Friday, Pete's Dragon, Candle Shoe, and The Black Hole. I mean, enough said. They were great.
Yeah.
Jodie Foster's in there. What more do you want? And then for animated shorts, we had what for me is a completely unwatchable animated short in the small one because I will never stop crying. I will be crying for days, and it's emotionally devastating, and I can't handle it. So the less said about that, the better. That is not a Christmas feature. I don't know what they were thinking. And then we had another great album. We had the Mickey Mouse Disco album, which was on heavy rotation in 3-year-old Amber's record player.
Very good. All right. I do want to call out our friends over at A Film By when they were doing their Film at 45 series. I joined them for an episode where they did review The Black Hole. So
Oh my God, that was so much fun.
it was very
I love that movie so
Yeah,
much.
I do too. I have a physical copy. Of course I do. All right. Fantastic. So the film we didn't pick, our listeners actually chose through social media
Well,
polls.
I picked it, but
Well,
thank you
that's
to
true.
the listeners that backed me up on this one.
We are discussing The Rescuers from 1977.
From Walt Disney Pictures.
And here we go!
This spring, get ready for fun.
Look out below!
Get ready for adventure.
Wait for me!
Get ready for action. As one of Disney's all-time favorites returns to theaters, The Rescuers. Meet Bianca and Bernard.
You'll be a great team.
Two little heroes about to take on the most wicked woman in the world, Madame Medusa.
You will never see that teddy again!
Put me down, brother.
Their mission, rescue a little girl.
Didn't you bring somebody big with you?
Bring her back, boys!
Oh, if I was only a 10-foot mouse, I'd show her.
Their only hope,
Do they want us now?
a gang of friends,
Everybody go!
and a dynamite plan.
Holy mackerel, my rudder's on fire!
It's runaway fun
Here she comes!
and soaring Disney adventure.
I'm going faster!
On land, on sea, and in the air.
Charge! Oh, Bernard, it's so exciting.
It's Walt Disney's classic, The Rescuers.
All right, Robert, hit us with some production facts about this.
Well, Amber was spot on. It was definitely kind of the lost years for Disney. And the really only company high point was the opening of Walt Disney World in 1971, but was tempered by the fact that less than 2 months later, Roy Disney, Walt's brother, passed away as well, leaving the company without a namesake. Everybody was devastated, and it was chaotic for a long time. There was just changes of leadership and infighting and insurrections and animators leaving and just all kinds of problems. But they managed to make a few good movies, and along with some of the ones Amber mentioned that I loved from the 70s as well. They also made just a string of really like low budget, corny kind of bad movies, but that people seem to have loved. There were a lot of computer wear tennis shoes and apple dumpling
Well, and a lot
gangs
of
and
like
things
sequels, like
Yeah,
another
it was
Love
just-
Bug and
Yeah, and
stuff
it's
like
like,
that.
oh, and if Don Knotts and Tim Conway are funny once, they'll be funny 12 more times, damn it. It was just like, I don't know. It was not a great time. And it was definitely a changing of the guard, and we'll see that in The Rescuers. It's partly how they put the movie together. Some of the 9 old men who'd been with Walt since the 1930s were kind of aging out and retiring or passing away. And they realized if they were going to keep animation going at all, and that was a decision. That was a conversation, was maybe animation is done with Walt gone. But they figured they better bring in some new faces, some new talent. So people like Glenn Keane and Ron Clements and Don Bluth for a while, all were brought into the Disney company and mentored by the remaining 9 old men. And in fact, The Rescuers was partly put together for that reason, so that the young and the old could work together. Of course, Glenn Keane went on to an illustrious Disney career, doing Beast and Beauty and the Beast and Ariel and The Little Mermaid and so on. Ron Clements is directed and been behind a lot of the biggest Disney hits. Don Bluth started his own studio, and whatever happened to him.
This was the movie that killed him.
Yeah.
He was like, peace out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, some people are leaders and some people are followers and some people are just, difficult to work with. And we'll just put Don in that last category, I guess, because.
Oh, that's
Hey,
not.
he did The Secret of Nim, so we're not going to criticize.
Yes, he did. Okay. Anyway,
Jeez.
moving
I happen to
on.
love that film.
The Aristocats, which took almost the same elements worked so well. A lot of the same elements with Ava Gabor and lots of funny animals and a fast-moving story. It was very successful, and they decided to kind of go back to that well again and make what ended up being The Rescuers. They were based on books by Marjorie Sharp, and as I've said in every episode about everything we've talked about, Walt got a hold of the idea of these books back when they were first out, got the right to them in 1962. I think there's 9 books now, but at the time there were only 3 or 4. And they actually shelved it in 62 because it was the first couple books were super political. In the first book, Miss Bianca goes to Norway to free a Norwegian dissident from political captivity, and there's no like wacky albatross and all this stuff. It's kind of social satire, and the Disney animators were like, Norway, there's too much snow. It doesn't look good, all that white. Let's move it somewhere else. Let's be trendy at the 70s. So they moved it to Cuba.
What?
And they were going to have Miss Bianca try and rescue a Cuban prisoner under Castro's regime. And they got a little ways into that and said, this might just not be the movie we want to make. The Sherman Brothers had no rhyme for Havana, I guess, or something. I don't know. Anyway, so they looked at a lot of different stories because they liked the idea of the characters. They liked the idea of Miss Bianca. They liked the idea of her little friend Bernard. And so they went over all kinds of stories. In one version, there was going to be a whole zoo involved of zoo animals that they rescue. And Louis Prima was going to be brought back as a polar bear this time, Amber. I thought of you. And
Yes.
Red Fox was going to be a lion. And they were
Oh,
going
that
to
would
be
be
like,
cool.
That would have
They were
been
gonna be like-
cool.
the two of them were going to be kind of like the wacky comic characters involved in this crime in a zoo. That did not last long, although they do have a scene in the movie, our finished movie, where they do go into a zoo. They kept some of the background paintings and things to visit that zoo, but I'm pretty sure the lion roar we hear is not Red Fox. I think it's probably just some sound effects guy. And one early version where they kind of went with, well, little girl kidnapped, it always works. Let's just do that. It's a classic. Did 101 Dalmatians kidnapping puppies, we'll just make it a girl, whatever. And so they actually considered Cruella de Vil as the villain. And they toyed with the idea of bringing Cruella back, and this time she's going to kidnap Penny for some reason they didn't really know. None of this has anything to do with the books, mind you, except for the Rescue Aid Society and Miss Bianca. But that did not end up being something they wanted to do. After 4 years of production, they come up with this idea of the kidnapped girl, the lady, the diamond, kind of the movie we have now. Bernie Mattinson, who was a terrific Disney artist for many years, says that Willie Reitherman came to him and said, how come after 4 years, this story is so simple? Why didn't we just think of it before? I'm leaving out some profanities that Wooly dropped in there. But anyway, so they came up with this lovely, simple story, and they decided not to bring in Cruella, but they wanted someone Cruella-esque. So Milt Kahl, one of the classic Disney animators, started sketching his soon-to-be ex-wife. Who basically
Such a hateful story. Like, what a jerk.
Yeah, down to the false eyelashes. And he was like, honey, let me sketch you a little bit. And then now we have it, the little like cha-cha boots she's wearing and the hips, all of it was the ex-Mrs. Milt Kahl by the end of the movie. And then they got Geraldine Page to voice it. So they had Medusa. At one point, Phyllis Diller was going to be the voice of Madame Medusa, which I thought would have been interesting, but I think they made a better choice.
Yeah, for sure.
And then Mr. Snopes was also a caricature of a real-life person. There was a film critic named John Culhane who was doing a profile on the Disney Animation Studios and Disney after Walt and so on was going to be a book and ended up being a magazine article. But they kept following Culhane around and sketching him. And if you see photos of John Culhane, he is pretty much Mr. Snopes. But anyway, the character of Evinrude was created to get them across the bayou once it was moved from Norway to Cuba to a castle to now the bayou. And so they got Evinrude out, and Jimmy McDonald, who had done Disney voices and Disney sound effects for decades, came out and did the voice out of retirement, did the voice of Evinrude, or the sounds of Evinrude. They made an upgrade to the xerographic process, and you'll notice instead of just doing the very harsh black ink with the every little speckle and thing. They came up with a softer way to do it. It was a little softer, and they actually used grayscale. So you will see the Bernard and Bianca's outlines, although still sketchy compared to the inked way they used to do it back in the 30s and 40s and 50s. Those lines get thicker and thinner a little bit, and they are in different shades of gray depending on what's going on. So it was a step forward technologically. They wrote a whole slew of songs that did not get used. I wish they would do one of those legacy albums and release them all, but they have not yet. They got Sammy Fain, who was like a finger-snapping songwriter from the 40s and 50s who wrote a lot of Frank Sinatra hits. Sammy Fain wrote a bunch of songs for it before they knew what it was. I think maybe they thought Louis Prima was going to sing some of them, but he got ditched except for the music for one of the songs they kept of his. And they brought in the super hot songwriting duo who had just gotten their Oscar nomination for Gonna Fly Now from Rocky. These two women, although they've written a lot of pop hits, hit it big. They had Rocky in 76 and The Rescuers in 77, and that was their film career. And in fact, Someone's Waiting for You got a nomination for Best Song, and so did Candle in the Water, and they both lost to There Had to Be a Morning After from the Poseidon Adventure. So it was a year for schmaltzy soprano, ballads. But anyway, movie was released. It got great reviews. It was recognized by some of the critics as kind of a swan song because, as I said, these new upstart animators each got paired with one of the surviving 9 old men. Glenn Keane worked on Penny, our heroine, and labored over this scene on the bed that she has with Rufus the cat, and showed it to Ollie Johnson. And Ollie said, well, it's a nice start, and got out a piece of tracing paper and put it over what Glenn had done and did some quick sketches. And Glenn just said it just opened his eyes to what good animation could be. So it was a nice lesson. He had her just constantly moving and doing things so that she could be animated and look lifelike. And he realized his was kind of like this, I think he called it a grotesque, spasming, I forget what else. There were a bunch of adjectives in there because he was trying to make Penny be, and Ollie knew she could be still sometimes, and she could look like a girl, and she could just, be a thing. But anyway, it worked.
But how humbling, though. Jeez.
Yeah. Well, but if you're going to be humbled by one of the 9 old men. I mean,
right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But it was, a lot of people realized it was kind of maybe an end of a kind of an era for Disney, with the warmth and the music and the humor and just that style of animation. It actually got a certificate, a special citation from the National Board of Review as restoring and upgrading the art of animation, which was kind of a backward slap toward, I think, some of the films Disney had done earlier and what some of the other studios were trying to do at the time. But it was a giant box office smash for Disney at the time. It was the most successful first release animated film of its day. By today's numbers, its whole total for a year wouldn't have made a good opening weekend. But at the time, it was a huge success. And I got a kick out of this for you Docking Bay 77 listeners. The Rescuers was the #1 film in France for that year, beating out Star Wars. It also beat out Star Wars for months in Germany as well. But Germany pulled it out at the end and went with Star Wars. But yeah, a huge hit. They did the first ever Disney animated sequel, a theater sequel for this one. They did The Rescuers Down Under in 1990 because the characters were so popular. And this was something I had learned doing some homework for this show, and it is on my Disney wish list now. They created and almost were going to greenlight a TV series with Bernard and Bianca teaming up with a descendant of Basil of Baker Street from The Great Mouse Detective.
Nice.
And these 3 mice were going to have these detective adventures all around the world. And it sounded like it would just be the most delightful thing. But alas, it did not come to pass. So,
I mean, we did get Chippendale Rescue Rangers out of it, so I think arguably a win-win.
Well, I think that might have been why. I think that came into play because it was around that same era. It was like, well, we already have 2 little rodents running around doing wacky stuff. How many more times can we go to that well? Said the studio who started with a mouse. But anyway,
right. I mean, I think they should have at least made an attempt.
I want to see the pilot. I want to see right? great grandson of the Great Mouse Detective with Bernard and Bianca because I love all those characters, and it would have been I'm sure entertaining one way or the other. But that brings us to the actual content of the film. So let's talk about that now that we know all the history of it.
So I do want to mention, you mentioned it was a box office success. The budget was only 7.5 million at the time, which is obviously very low by today's standards, but not necessarily by 1970 standards. And it did make 48 million on its initial run, which is quite impressive. Now, after its two re-releases, one in 83, one in 89, it totaled 169 million. So that's pretty impressive considering the initial budget was only 7. And so I think that's pretty awesome, all things considered. But I just wanted to mention that because, yes, by today's standards, that's not much, but by 1977 standards, that's pretty damn good. So.
Well, and those re-releases were genius on Walt's part because it kept the audience fresh and it cost nothing. I mean, for a long time, they didn't even make new prints. They would just trot out their old prints again and show them. Then by the 70s, they started doing better prints and so on. But what an easy way. You get a little bit of a marketing budget and that you're just selling the same thing again and people are buying it. It was genius.
Yep. All right. So I promised Amber she can go first in this department because she has a story. And I have a story too, but I'm going to let Amber go first.
Well, so this one, I was excited to watch again. I don't watch it very often because I get emotional.
What?
Because I get emotional now talking about it. This was my first ever in the theater movie. I had been to the drive-in. But I had never seen a movie in the theater. I was 3 years old and my dad took me on a date. We went to McDonald's and then we went to the movie theater, and it was one of the old theaters with the curtain that closed. And I remember being nervous at the beginning because I knew there was a mean lady in the movie. And I thought I thought they were really behind the curtain. And I was like, is that mean lady behind the curtain? Like, is she going to come out? And I was a little anxious, but hard to believe that you can remember being 3, but I remember being 3 and in that seat with the little booster and sitting with my dad. And I love this movie. I had the record, I had the book on tape. Never really got into the original books. It was all about this specific movie with the music and the characters and everything. And it's a glorious memory. And I was really nervous because I haven't seen it in, I don't know, probably 10 years. And watched it like 3 times, cried through the first 2, and then was able to actually watch it critically the 3rd time. And so pleased it still holds up. It's still a great movie. I still love everything about it.
Now, Amber, you were talking about book versus film in the last episode when we talked about Jungle Book. I'm with you 100%. This movie is in my top 7 of Disney films of all time, and probably in my top 3 if I had to start thinking about ratings.
Yeah, for sure.
I love this movie. It's just got everything for me. But I came to the books late, and
I was like an adult.
Yeah, well, and I tried reading the first one, and I was like, my God, this is awful. And then I tried reading it again a few years later, and it was awful. I even had like the tie-in edition with the Disney cover that someone gave me because they knew I loved the movie. And her books, I mean, I if I'd come the other way around, maybe I'd feel different. But her books are not humorous. Her books are not warm. Her books are not exciting. They're just, I don't know. I've started 2 different Miss Bianca books, and I didn't finish either one. And so interesting how we have kind of a reverse Jungle Book on our hands here, where the movie wins instead of book wins. I love that. I love your story. I wish I could evoke such strong memories of my first movie. That's fantastic.
Well,
what stood out to you besides the booster seat and the curtain? Did anything about the actual the movie? Do you remember anything from that viewing?
Not from that view. I just remember like it was so big.
That
was when the curtain opened and the movie started. It was like, and we weren't in the car because like going to the drive-in, you're always so far away. Or at least we always were. I guess my dad liked to sit in the back. I don't know. And like you're a kid, so you don't stay awake the whole time, where this was, I was like awake and locked in, and it was huge.
Yeah.
And feeling very safe sitting next to my dad.
Right. Well, so the first time I saw this was in the theater, but it was in 1989 on the re-release. So So we were actually visiting family in Northern California. I think it was for my um, grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary or whatever. So of course the whole family was there, and my one of my cousins, Dylan, we decided to go to see the movie because we knew the Rescuers was playing, and Mickey's Christmas Carol was actually the opening cartoon as well. So I got to see that for the first time in the theater. Now, what makes this even more special is like it was the first time seeing both of those, and but it was the theater that I saw it in that actually has an impact. It was a smaller theater, very old, and very very California, I guess is a good way to put it. The houses were small, and the theater we saw it in had, to Wilbur's point, had the curtain, but it was a very small theater to the point to where it had the little sloping floor, but the seats at the back were literally attached to the wall and they were throne like. So they had the armrests and whatever, they're very big. And as the seats as rows went down, the seats got closer and closer to the floor, to the point to where the front row was literally sitting on the floor. Your legs were almost completely straight out. So of course, us being kids, we're like, we're going to sit in the very front. So our legs were sitting straight out where like the screen was right above us. Not a huge screen, but big when you're sitting right up front. But what really sticks out, not only did I enjoy the movie and the Mickey's Christmas Carol, but the theater was called the Dream Theater, which is actually the inspiration for one of my favorite bands' names, Dream Theater, who has been a favorite band of mine since the early 1990s. So I just thought that was very cool because at the time I didn't know who they were. And then later when I was like, wait a minute, I saw a movie in a Dream Theater, I looked it up, and sure enough, that's partially where they got their name from. So I remember that. It was a fun time seeing it in the theater. And so with Walt being smart and re-releasing his movies, that's how I actually got to see it for the first time. So, and I still enjoy it to this day.
Yeah, I saw it in high school when it came out, and took my sister as a pretext because I didn't want to be like, the uncool teenager at the Disney
Right.
movies. My sister could care less, and but she went, and but then I just loved it, and I remember at the time because I was in high school, and I was a little baby gay, and my little baby gay best friend David and I went and saw it over and over. We loved how campy Madame Medusa was, and that was the summer where every time we answered our phone, yes, phone kids, like landline, it was like Madame Medusa's Pawn Shop Boutique, and it's like everything she said and did was just like she was like a sort of a role model for us that summer. I'm sure we were obnoxious beyond belief, but gosh, that is my memory of the release of that film, is just thinking Madame Medusa was like the coolest thing ever, and just how
your unrealized drag persona.
Yeah, honestly, she was like I would say a bitch on wheels, but she was like a bitch on a swamp mobile.
Right?
She was just crazy and evil, but then she would just do these like affected, horrible things, and
well, and everything she says is awful. Like there's no line that she has that isn't just the worst thing anybody could ever say.
Well, when she says to Penny, well, who would adopt you? And I'm just like,
only little girl.
Yes,
like
I'm like,
you.
oh, that's just terrible. So
giant clown face is saying this at the same time, which is what makes it so great,
Well, and so actually, let's talk about her a little bit more, because in our last episode, we're talking about the Jungle Book. We had this talented actor doing this character, the villain Shere Khan, who pretty much doesn't do anything the entire movie, and then in here we have who I would say was probably in the top 5, maybe top 7 Disney villains of all time, because she is horrible. There is nothing positive about her. I mean, she has an awesome hideout, probably it was a casino riverboat at one point, but she has an awesome hideout.
I love it when all the lights come on at night. like
Yeah. Well, and then you have
she flips on the lights inside.
Yes, and then she's like looking for the kid or whatever. And I mean, she's a cool hideout. She's absolutely mean. She's obviously crazy. She's violent.
And what's interesting about her that I noticed this time is I had just kind of glossed over this, I guess. This has been going on. Penny has been kidnapped for 3 months.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Medusa has freaking had it with this kid. Like, she is done with the complaining. She's done with Snoops, like, being wishy-washy. She doesn't want to hear another word about the stupid bear. Like, she is done with all of them.
Geraldine Page's voice characterization, because she is like cajoling and sweet, and then she's like campy and over the top when she's trying to like be affected. But then when she like gets to like Teddy's staying with me, it's like the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. It's like she is so nasty and evil. And as a Geraldine Page, I wish she had maybe done some more voice work because
Yes.
the talent is she wasn't an actress. This is just.
Well, and then you watch The Trip to Bountiful, and she's like the sweetest little grandma. Like, how could you possibly be the same person?
It's called acting, Amber.
I know, but my God.
Well, I do want to point out that with Cruella de Vil possibly being the villain initially, you can kind of see that in her driving skills are very much Cruella,
Yes.
and even like ramped up to 11 because they're even worse. I mean, she makes her car do a wheelie, which I'm like, I don't even know how that's possible. But I mean, she's driving around so hard, her suitcase flies out of there, and she's just the way she drives her swampmobile. She drives it up onto the riverboat, and then she's like complaining why it doesn't run. I'm like, because of look how you parked it. I mean, come on, you're destroying everything.
The car wheelie is like the only 4 frames in the film I don't enjoy.
I would agree with that. That's
I just snipped that out. Speaking of frames, I did not mention in the production portion of it the controversy. Do you guys know the
my God, I was hoping you wouldn't bring this up.
Yes.
Oh, never mind. Okay.
Well, no, because I remember when it happened. I'm like,
everybody's gonna want to know.
Well, the story I'd heard is that nobody was looking for it. Some mother or other paused the VHS. Because they had to recall a bunch of VHSs. Some mother paused the VHS. They put in, for those of you who don't know, the animators. No one ever claimed it. But again, there's a lot of young folks now at the studio. I think it was Don Bluth myself. But anyway.
Oh, would you stick it off his back?
A soon to be disgruntled Don Bluth. No, they put in 2 frames, non-consecutive, mind you. So they weren't even consecutive. In the scene where they are flying with Orville and they are going swooping down through the chasm of New York City, in one of the windows you can see a topless woman in 2 separate, literally like frames. And they're not even consecutive, so you cannot see it with the naked eye at all. But so the story is that some mom somewhere paused it for a little Cheerio break moment for her kid or whatever, and there was this topless woman in the window behind Bernard and Bianca and Orville, and so there was a big brouhaha, and Disney recalled 400,000 copies of the VHS, and it was a whole hullabaloo.
I mean, to be fair, they were in New York. It's not like New York in the 70s. It's not like it's beyond the realm of possibility.
Exactly. But it was not that kind of movie. But no.
But once again, you couldn't see it with the naked eye, so it doesn't really friggin' matter.
Right. But
oh,
well. It's just bad luck.
The Baptists were getting ready for the 80s. They were getting ready for all the protests about all the things. But
there you go.
Anyway.
So I just want to come to Don Bluth's defense just a little bit because I happen to enjoy his films.
Yes, he is a brilliant animator.
So just because he doesn't get along with the Disney animators doesn't make him a bad person. So, but I do want to point out.
I mean, Tim Burton quit too, so you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of Disney people that quit and went on to their own.
The difference is, I would say that the best of Don Bluth is not any better than the worst of Disney. Whereas Tim Burton, even though I don't always like all his movies, Tim Burton has a sense of style and a talent and an ability. I think Bluth is just to me it's just a hack.
Well, I 100% disagree with you.
Yeah, I don't agree with you either.
Fair, but then I wasn't a kid when those movies came out. I was already discerning, and so
jeez.
Well, I mean, like especially during the opening at the Rescue Aid Society, there's a few of those mice that I swear he plucked right from that scene and dropped in The Secret of NIMH. I mean, I mean, they're just identical.
He snuck out with his sketch pad, I'm sure.
And that's fine. He has, even when we did an episode on The Great Mouse Detective, Ratigan to me is a Bluth villain. You know, way he was drawn and everything else. He has a lot of similariries. So I happen
he's 100% Jenner.
Yeah, exactly.
With the teeth and the whole,
So I mean,
sure.
I was a fan of the video game Dragon's Lair, which I was terrible at. I was a fan of the video game.
I think we all were.
I was terrible at it.
I never knew anybody that was good at that game.
Yeah, no, there was like one person out of 100 that can actually do that. So, but so you know, you can see. You know, like I'm watching this and I go and I saw his name. Like, yeah, I can see it. I can see it right there in the box. But that's okay.
Sure.
Anyway,
let's talk about Penny. as a heroine.
I
Yeah.
love how she talks back to Nero, Brutus, and Mr. Snoops. Like she doesn't give a crap about them. They're not scary, but
She is
she's obviously
constantly trying to save herself.
yeah, and she's obviously terrified of Madame Medusa, which you should be because she's out of her friggin' mind.
You've opened a door I was going to mention a little bit later, but so Bernard and Bianca is by far the brains of that operation and gets that done. And then the villain is Madame Medusa with the dopey Medusa has the dopey incompetent sidekick Snopes, and then even Ellie Mae out had to like keep pulling Luke off his bottle of moonshine, and then we have Penny. Like this is like the most female forward Sisters are doing it for themselves movie Disney has ever done. But it doesn't read like that. You don't sit there and be like, God, they're like treating all the men like crap. But it's like, but antagonist, hero, sidekick, everybody who's awesome in this movie and gets things, moves the plot forward and gets things done. They're all female characters, which I think is really remarkable, especially for something that came out in the mid 1970s.
Well, I think they do a good job between Bernard and Bianca sharing the load, because they both take turns rescuing each other, and Bernard finds something that Bianca doesn't see. So they did a good job balancing those two out.
Yeah, I'm not saying it was but it definitely passes the Bechdel test, which most Disney movies do not. Where you're like, who is Cinderella? I don't know. She marries a prince. Who is Snow White? I don't know. She cleans and she marries a prince. It's like the Sleeping Beauty. She sleeps and then she marries a prince. Like they don't have anything going on. And in this movie, you've got a bunch of different characters, female characters, from pawn shop owners to like, I don't know, whatever Ellie
Muskrat, I think.
Yeah, they're muskrats. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, every strata of cartoon society has got these like strong women doing stuff, and I think it's kind of amazing. But Penny is the bomb. She just love her.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. She it's funny how we kind of gloss over the fact that she can talk to animals. It's like it's because sometimes in a feature film, sometimes an animated film, they kind of make a big deal, like they do that with All Dogs Go to Heaven. Like she's able to talk to animals, and this one is just kind of like at the very end when she's being interviewed. Yeah, I can talk to mice, and you're just like, okay, cool. We don't question it. We don't. Like, oh, she can talk to animals. So, and like, I do find it funny that Nero and Brutus don't speak. All the other animals do, but maybe they just don't have the brains to speak. But I don't know. I love Nero and Brutus regardless, because the idea she has pet crocodiles that listen to her is just awesome. It makes me think of Romancing the Stone later. And look at the snappers, will you? Sorry, whatever. Anyway, but no, Penny is she's a great heroine. She's a great character. And me, I'm always a sucker for a kid getting adopted. So I, flash back to our Meet the Robinsons episode. So she's very sweet, and I just love, when she's yelling at the Nero Brutus, don't get
Don't
Teddy
you dare
wet
get
again.
my teddy bear wet.
Yeah, I know, so funny. Look what
they did to my pants.
Yes. Oh, she's so much fun.
Well, and she's so, constantly working the problem. I'm going to try message in a bottle. I'm going to try to run away. I'm going to, I know how to use what I have on hand to work with Bernard and Bianca to, try to escape again.
Right. Well, yeah, it's like when they figure out their escape plan, they all suggest something different. They say, well, what about a cage? She's like, I know exactly what we can do. They have the elevator, and then somebody else comes up with the fireworks. So like I said, they do work very well as a team. And then of course they call all the locals to help, and that's just pretty funny too when they all show up.
When I was a kid, I was so tickled when we went to my grandma's summer cottage and we went out on the boat, and I realized that our little motor on the motorboat was an even red motor.
Oh, I love it. All right, that's just great. So I do want to mention Bob Newhart and Eva Gabor as Bernard and Bianca, because I just want to point out that Bernard got his Uptown Girl long before Billy Joel got his. So just pointing that out right now.
Well, and I love that slow building romance that they have.
Yeah, the flight from New York down there, it's like, she ends up snuggling up to him, and
he
like,
does the stretch move.
Yeah, he kind of puts it there, like I'm gonna think about it, and then okay, I'm gonna, so yeah, it's very sweet, and that's actually one of the few pieces of music I actually like, but whatever. It's a very sweet scene.
Music.
Yeah,
I gotta say, their romance and their characterization, especially coming off of, say, I don't know, Jungle Book. The animation in this is so lovely and detailed and specific. I mean, I ended up rewatching this a couple times to prep for this, and I was just watching Bernardo and Bianca's hands because like
Yeah.
their hands
Yes.
are like and then I think like Baloo, if I remember right, has like two like blue catcher's mitts that like just kind of like move from side to side like a puppet, you know. And the animation in this is so strong. And I don't know if it was the young people trying to show the nine old men what they could do, or the nine old men trying to show off for the whippersnappers or whatever. But it really, just in terms of the character drawing, the movement, the detail, is one of the strongest Disney films for a long time in that period. Because
It reminded me of what I love about the Aristocats. I love the way the lady that owns them is drawn. She is
Right.
the most like
Yes.
realistic human I think Disney's
Yeah.
ever drawn. I love the landscapes and the backgrounds and her
Mhm.
house and everything in it, you know. And it seems like this just adds to that level of detail.
Well, especially at the beginning when all the ambassadors for the UN are getting out of their cars and walking in, that like they look, pretty realistic, as far
Yes.
as they did a good job making them look like real people instead of, cartoon people. Now, I will push back on the animation in only one section, and I'm going to bring up the opening credit scene to Jungle Book versus this one. This one to me, with music and the still shots, it kind of feels like they spent all their money on the good animation to the film and kind of said, well, we're going to stop now and just have stagnant shots for because the opening, the cold open with her throwing the bottle in the water is great. The rest of it's just kind of like, okay, let's just get to the UN.
Well, see, I love it. It was almost one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah, and I do
I don't
too.
like it at all.
But the thing that changed it for me in a lot of ways, I was today years old when I learned that song is sung by the bottle. It's the bottle's song. It's not Penny.
Right. It doesn't change it for me. I still like it.
And I love that. I love the images of where it's traveling. And
I do too, but it kind of feels like they did that on the cheap. Why not actually have it animated? I think it would have been more impactful.
I like
it
because it's something different than we've seen before, and it is very moody. You've got this like choral voice singing that might be a girl, it might be a bottle, you don't know. This very evocative, moody 70s kind of ballad song, and I like that it takes us into New York City, which is a real place and looks quasi-realistic at the beginning for a movie about little cartoon mice flying around on an albatross in a tin can, So, but I loved it. I thought, and unlike, say, the Jungle Book, which we talked about how much we love that opening, and I do love the opening to Jungle Book with the music and the scene setting. It's also storytells because we go from her throwing the bottle off of the wrecked casino boat and being washed out to the Atlantic and a steamer going by and no one sees it. And then it drifts and drifts for ages. And then it finally ends up, in New York and it's discovered. And so, and those are long credits. If you think back to like our early 30s and 40s Disney movies we watched, the credits were like 10 seconds long. It was Walt Disney Presents a Walt Disney Picture Snow White by Walt Disney. I mean, it was like, that was your credits. And this has, with the Times, a lot of credits. And I think they filled those 2 minutes really well. And I thought with the music, I thought it was moody, it was evocative, it was not. You didn't need to have little like rippling waves and flying seagulls and all that stuff going on. That wasn't the story. Wasn't about that. The story is about, to Amber's point, get us to the UN, or to your point, I should say, get it to the UN. And they did during a lengthy credit scene, but it gave a nice mood. This wasn't going to be a wacky Don Knotts and Tim Conway thing.
Well, and I also think that it prepared us to get to New York because the way that New York, the backgrounds are animated, it's very much a style. It's, there's not a lot of depth. There's not a lot of movement. You're really focused 100% on the mice and the albatross and where they're going and stuff. So I think it prepares you for kind of stepping into this painting, so to speak, of an area until they get to Devil's Bayou, which is full of life. And
Right. I just don't like the song. I just really don't like that song.
See, that's what I was going to ask you, because you are so into.
I think
like,
it's a sad story that we almost got Karen Carpenter to sing, and we didn't. I think maybe it would have been better.
So okay. I guess my issue is, I remember watching it, even Mandy was in the room when I first put it on, and she was just like, okay, I'm going to go to sleep now. And that's kind of how I felt with this song. Yes, it's moody, and yes, it kind of and to your point, the animation does paint a picture. But to me, it's hard for me to get through that song. I love watching The Bottle. And I'm not asking it for me.
I mean,
that's not what I'm asking for. I don't like this. I don't like the vocals. I don't like how it's presented. It screams mid 70s in the wrong ways. There's plenty of songs from the 70s that I love. I mean, everybody knows my feelings that I feel rock in the 70s was the best decade for rock. And it doesn't.
So if they threw a electric guitar in there,
no, I don't want that either. It should fit the mood of the movie. And you're right. It's not a laugh riot. It's not until, of course, you get the chase scene at the end. To me, I just don't like the sound of it. I don't like the music. I don't like the vocals. I don't like it.
How do you feel about the rest of the songs?
Most of the music in this film doesn't work for me. The one song I do enjoy is when they're flying and the relationship is building because of what's going on the screen, and it works with that. Most of the other music I just don't like very much. Like,
do you not like the score either?
The score is okay, fine. It does what it's supposed to do. It doesn't distract me from it. But to me, the strength of this film is the voice acting, the animation, and the characters. The music to me is, I kind of go, okay, it's there, fine, I have to deal with it. But the rest of it is great. The rest of the film is great.
It's interesting because except for the Rescue Aid Society song, none of the characters sing.
Right.
They aren't. It isn't like a typical Disney. And the one of the early passes at it, they were going to have the characters singing all the time, and they realized they had a lot of compelling stories and characters going on, so they kind of sheared them off. So I like that we have background songs that it is a very 70s trope.
It's interesting to me that later on we're going to argue over Tarzan, and this is the same kind of music, and you don't like this, but you do like that.
No, I'm sorry. The soundtrack to Tarzan is fantastic.
Well, while we talk about, and to your point, you are not wrong. This is absolutely 70s music. I mean,
for
the woman's
sure,
vocal,
yeah.
Shelby, I forget her last name, but the vocal stylings are very 70s. The whole thing,
But, when you said that they lost to the Poseidon Adventure, I'm like, well, that tracks.
Well, I think there's a reason for that. You know what I mean? So, and there's plenty of songs from the 70s and plenty of films from the 70s that have songs that are timeless.
Well, I don't think this was meant to be a radio song, though. I mean,
I didn't think it was either.
The entire extent of the lyrics is "Who will rescue me?" It's
true.
There's not a lot going on compared to like the ballad. Speaking of songs, I have a story about the Rescue Aid Society song.
Just fun. I like that one.
I love when Ava Gabor comes in, like she just takes it to another level.
Yeah. But Disney Store back in the golden era, a long time ago, I was working Disney Store, and that was when we had still the giant TV screen at the back of the store and Plush Mountain and all those things that we all grew up loving. We did video clips. They were always, once a month they send us a new little video or disc, depending on what decade I was in. And one of them came along and had the Rescue Aid Society song on it. And it was the funniest thing because we put it in, and it was a busy Saturday, and that song came on, and every adult in the room just like slow motion turned toward the screen and started singing along. And I literally like teared up. I was like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden, all these people are going, I was 5, I was 9, I had the plush, I had the cassette. And they're like, and they're all shopping there with their kids. And this was probably, I don't think it was 89, it might have been, but it was for one of the releases. So we actually had some merchandise. But I mean, we are going through all the Disney hits. We have When You Wish Upon a Star, and we have Chim Chim Cheree, and we have I Want to Be Like You. Everything's playing on this disc. And inevitably, the Rescue Aid song would come on, and the entire room would just go silent, and you'd hear the singing start. And it like goosebumps me still that people like did that. I thought it was the coolest thing.
Disney magic. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was the best.
So we actually have Bernard and Bianca Christmas tree ornaments that we put up every year. So
Yes.
just going to throw that out there.
Same.
I've got little vintage ceramics of the two of them that I bought when the movie came out,
Nice.
which I still love. Yeah, they're just. I had the LP with the pages you turned and all that as well, the story LP, which was fun. But
I love
got to
how
work.
feminine they made her. She's like
Oh yeah.
such a broad, like you know, she's dressed nice. She walks differently. She, you know, she's got her perfume, you know, she smells good. Like she is so elegant.
And she had to
And-
pack a few things before the trip too. That's why they were late.
Yeah.
And yet, like, is not a priss. Like she's all about the first one to volunteer. I'll go do it. It's fine. Let's cross through the zoo, you know, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like how they get out in front of the zoo and they hide underneath a blue U.S. mailbox. I was like, hey,
Aw.
Yes.
sorry. I noticed those things a lot more now than I ever did. So whatever. But yeah, I do want to mention Orville because I love
I was just gonna say that.
because the Albatross Airlines and Orville just makes me laugh so much.
Have you ever seen footage of an albatross actually like taking off and landing?
No,
The
I have not.
animation, it's like spot on. They are the most ungainly. How they ever get where they need to go is amazing. And the fact that they like captured this with hand-drawn animation is just mind-blowing to me. It's
I got to
so
give a
fun.
shout out to once he does get airborne, which does take a while. But flying in movies, in animated movies, whether it's CG or it's hand drawn, always looks wrong. Like they don't look like they're really keeping themselves in the air or moving. I've never seen an animated film, but when Orville is flying, I was noticing on Watch 3 or whatever. But like it really, whoever did that did a fabulous job where it looks like he is actually moving himself through the air and his wings are working, and it's all which is a stunt. Because even in some of the Lord of the Rings movies, I'm like, that eagle is not flying. Like I'm sorry, I don't care how many $1 billion they spent on that.
Hey, now.
Jackson has some explaining. Well, no, I'm just saying, that's a prop to whoever. And I also just because I love old time radio and hearing the actor who voiced Orville, he was Fibber McGee from Fibber McGee and Molly for decades on the radio. And as soon as I hear his voice, I didn't know him at all when I was a kid, but
Right.
hearing him now, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's him. And I'm sure that must have been wonderful for audiences at that time who you know, the adults then grew up hearing him on the radio in the 40s and 50s, probably got a kick out of hearing his voice too.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
for sure.
he's fun, and I just love how he's like, hey, go down that checklist for me, and then you know, Bernard's reading it. We get to if at first you don't succeed, try again. I'm just like,
Yeah.
we should have taken the train.
Yes.
Well, and Bob Newhart had like a whole bit about being afraid of flying. So like that
Yeah.
little in joke is
Yeah.
like so good.
Well, I love his little superstitions. How there's 13 steps, and like she's like, well, just hop the last one, and he's like,
Well,
okay.
and the
that-
adventure takes place on Friday the 13th.
yes, I know.
Yeah.
It's just
It's so good.
funny.
Like
yeah,
the way they just keep bringing that back around.
I just love how Bob Newhart, who we've talked about tonight, we talked about during the In and Out episode, and we like he made an entire career out of his stammer, and it's like he is never not hilariously funny and just so amazing. And yeah, this is weirdly, even though he was in Catch 22 and he was in all kinds of movies, not as many as he ought to because he did the sitcom route. Fortunately for all of us, because those were great too. But to kind of have one bit or one kind of shtick you do and parlay it into like a 70-year career, I think
Right.
it's kind of amazing.
yeah,
And
it
not
is.
Every
be
little
like boring.
Yeah,
Every little stammer and hesitation and pause and you know, they slay. They're so funny and they never seem forced or fake. And it makes you just want to root for him more than anything.
All right, so I mentioned it a little bit on our Jungle Book episode about the reusing, and I mentioned how every time Orville takes off, it's literally this, you know, the same animation, just change the background a little bit. And
But like they did that in the Jungle Book with Ka too. Like
I-
every time
I
he fell out
agree.
of the tree and
I know, but like I said, on rewatch, when you start to watch it, you start to notice it, and I just find that funny.
I think he only takes off twice, doesn't he? There's from the building going to New York, and then there's on the little pier or whatever it is in the swamp when he's leaving.
Yeah, but then there's
Yeah.
at the very end he does it again too in the
Yeah.
snow.
But I think
see,
it's noticeable as well because it's the same audio too. I think that's
Yeah.
I just to me it's a running gag. I'm just gonna go with because I love this movie so well. It's a running gag.
It's not honestly when you're watching it for the first or second time, it's really not noticeable. But now that my brain knows that
and
they start doing that, you know,
like we said, this is the decade of the great recycling, and we have
same director,
Snow White showing up in Robin Hood or whatever.
At least we did not get that like 1970s Scooby-Doo animation where they're running and they go by like the same mountain like 7 times. I mean, like
hey,
that I cannot.
No, I agree. That has its place. You know, the Flintstones and Scooby Doo. That's fine, but it does not belong here. And I agree.
I do like it when like they go from left to right and then they go from left to right again.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That will always crack me up.
All right. So is there anything else you guys want to mention before we do our favorites? Nope. Okay, cool. I had all my notes too.
Covered my list, I think.
All right. Awesome. All right. So let's start with our favorite character, Amber.
Penny.
All
she
right.
is like a great sassy little heroine, and I related to her so much because she's got brown hair, she's got a little gap between her teeth, she's not this beautiful glamorous Disney princess, she's just an average little girl. And those of us that were average little girls need a hero like that,
right? And she's a good hero for sure. All right, Robert.
I'm gonna see your Penny and raise you a Rufus.
I love Rufus so much with his little scarf.
Penny is a standout for me anyway because I think she's the only Disney kid and almost the only Disney heroine who has a personality and you can describe with adjectives. Most of them are just like you say Cinderella, you got nothing else to say. She just she does things, but she isn't anything, Where Penny is like we've been talking about all night, is fully formed, feisty, smart, little girl who can figure things out, and I love her. But my gosh, the scene where she is talking to Rufus just brings tears to my eyes every time, and I think it was kind of bold of the Disney company to show that kind of confusion and vulnerability. I mean, this is the studio that has Baloo and Drag singing "I Want to Be Like You," and now all of a sudden we have this whole conversation about no one wants me because I'm not the pretty little girl, and Rufus is giving her he's this old feeble cat, and he's giving her advice, and the two of them, their relationship just like warms my heart, and just really is one of the things that elevates this movie above, say, like the Aristocats. The Aristocats does not have an equivalent scene like that where you're just it's real and it's moving and you care so much. I love Aristocat too, but this movie, why I like it so well is Penny is awesome all through, but the Penny and Rufus duet is just magical.
I wish Penny would learn to carry Rufus a little bit better.
That's so like real though.
It is. I know that, but it's still every time she does it, I'm like going, "Oh, come on, Rufus, just jeez."
And what I love, he's just like,
yeah, okay, that's fine. So my favorite character is Bernard because I always a big fan of a working class guy makes good. I like when they we get that hero. He overcomes his fears, deals with his little, 13 this, 13 that. And like I said before, he gets his uptown girl. And I think that's kind of fantastic. So he's my favorite character. All right. So you guys can answer this favorite song because I don't have one. So hey, Amber, you have a favorite song?
The Rescue Aid Society, actually. I like.
All right,
well,
then I'll go along with that. Yeah,
songs.
I like that one. I can do that one.
I like Someone's Waiting for You, but that sequence is so sad that it just breaks your heart. But the Rescue Aid Society is just the best song.
All right, Robert.
Yeah, I'm going to vote for Rescue Aid Society as well. It is the only sing-along song, for sure. Yeah. But it like I said, to turn an entire room full of strangers into a choir at a Disney store, that's got something magical about it as well.
Absolutely. All right, so let's do our favorite scene then, Amber.
Mine is from when they get to the entrance of the cave and Medusa takes the teddy bear and is screaming at Penny from that point until she gets the diamond. I love that whole
Yeah, that's my answer too.
sequence.
It's
is
my answer
just-
too.
Well, it must be the right one because all three of us agree.
I mean, you get like Medusa being evil, you get Penny being sassy, you get them solving the problem, the spooky pirate cave, like.
And it's scary, that water coming in. I'm kind of
Yes.
like hurry up. Like, yeah. I like it. I was gonna say initially I'd written like anything with Medusa, because she just, that was my hedge for having her not be my favorite character, which is anytime she's on screen, being grotesque and repulsive and scary and unpredictable. But yeah, that devil's eye scene to where she turns up like I'm a comic frump, haha, to my God, this is like Satan in heels. Like, she is just so scary.
Yeah.
And just doesn't care about Snope, doesn't care about the water coming in. It's like she wants that damn diamond or else. It just,
Yeah.
Well, and the fact that like there's all those little jewels down there, like anyone would be happy to find that pirate hoard. And she's like, forget it. I want the big baseball diamond.
She even knocks him out of his hands.
I love the bit where he's like, "Can I see it? Can I even see it?" And she's like, "Pink!" She gives him like. So they even though she's horrid, she like there's like still comedy in it, which is so much fun. But
and what a shock! She actually betrays him too. I'm like, oh, you're surprised? You're an idiot.
Yeah, right. I want to know how those two found each other. That's like the backstory movie. I want to know, was he like an employee at her shop?
I thought they worked together.
She calls him a cheap pickpocket. So I bet he's like a frequent flyer at that pawn shop where he steals.
Yeah, I think they work at the pawn shop together.
Or maybe he brings stuff to the pawn shop that he's lifted, and then she sells it and gives him a not enough of a cut, for doing all the hard work.
All right. So we're all agreement on that one. That's kind of fun. So all right, cool. Let's do our closing comments and a rating 1 to 5 diamonds. So Robert, what are your closing comments and what's your rating?
I just, like I said, I love this movie. It's one of my favorite Disney's. And I can see it is. There's a few 70s isms in it, but I grew up then, so I don't mind that part either. So I'm going to give it a strong 5 glinty big diamonds for this one.
All right, fantastic. Amber?
I was so thrilled after having, taken a gap from watching it, that it was not just nostalgia based love that made this movie, one of my favorites. It really is one of the highest quality Disney movies. I absolutely give it 5 beautiful, shiny diamonds.
So I do have very fond memories of seeing this in the theater for the first time. And as I mentioned before, we do have ornaments of both Bianca and Bernard. They get put on our tree every year. To me, the voice acting and the story are solid, and that's what brings me back. We have a great villain. We have a wonderful hero and Penny, and just all the characters are fun. And to me, all that makes up for the really, really bad music that I really don't like, with the exception of the Rescue Aid Society song. So for me, I give it 4 out of 5 diamonds because it's not quite the level that I kind of want or expect, but it's definitely a good film and they do a lot of things right. So, but yeah.
Remind me again, what were some of your top 7 Disney animateds?
Oh, that was a couple of years ago, man. Give me a break.
I'm assuming. Okay, never mind.
No, it's so
I'll go back and listen to it again.
Yes, but I can tell you the Jungle Book was on, and Fantasia was my number 1. Apart from that, honestly, I don't really remember because it's been a couple of years. That was a long time ago.
But I feel like lists like that kind of evolve. Like
they do. And honestly, this one might have been on my list and I don't remember. So it's been quite a long time. In with Dayton's brain, 2 years ago was a long time ago. So.
Apropos of top 7 lists, I just saw this in the paper this morning. For anybody who remembers our top 7 bad films we love episode, Amber had started off with Hallmark movies, and I went right to a gay porn with the movie Pink Narcissus. Remarkably, it is getting a 4K restoration and is being released by Strand Entertainment and is headlining a bunch of film festivals, Telluride in Seattle and a bunch. This year, the UCLA Film Archive did a full preservation and restoration of the movie. And it is I just learned this today. It is coming back around to a theater near you. So if you are adventurous and over 18, see if it's playing in a theater near you, and then
We need to have a docking bay
Yeah,
field
you
trip.
can go without me. That's fine.
Would you rather, but think of it, would you rather actually see it for the 70 minutes or whatever it is, or would you rather hear us all talk about it for the next 5 months? Just saying. Anyway.
Oh, so I get to pick my poison. Got it. Okay. Anyway. Oh, well, that was a fantastic way to end this particular episode. So thank you, Robert.
If you ever wondered what it was like to work at the Disney store.
Yeah, well, with these two.
This is backstage.
Yeah, for real.
Yes, all backstage. All
yes.
backstage.
All right. Anyway, so that brings us to the end of this episode number 5. We will return to the Disney Through the Decades series in July. 5 more films to discuss. So I do want to, of course, thank Amber and Robert for being here. So thank you, Robert.
Thank you. And if you weren't planning on saying it, I'll say it for you, or maybe you were. But thank you to our listeners for voting on this film to be our top film for the 70s, because it gave us all a chance to reminisce. And I hope that we lived up to your expectation during this episode.
Right.
If anything Dayton said you don't like, be sure and post a comment.
Yeah, I'm not worried. I'm used to people
just
disagreeing with me.
relish, as we all do, in being right when he is wrong.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And we were having a chat on Discord about the Sure Thing. So if you're on our Discord, you can see what Amber said to me after my opinion of that film came out. So anyway, so and yes, thanks Amber for being here, and hashtag Team Amber.
Yes, thank you for letting me share one of my favorite childhood memories.
Of course. And of course, we'd like to thank our listeners. Thank you for spending time with us, and thank you once again for voting on this particular topic for this episode. Let us know what you think. Did we do it justice, as Robert brought up? We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Blue Sky, and there is also a link to our Discord. So let us know what you think. If you want to help out the podcast, rate and review and share the podcast. If we see the review, we will share it on an episode. And as far as sharing it with other people, more better. If you truly love what we're doing and want to support it other ways, hop on over to our Patreon. And it's for as little as $1 a month. You can get exclusive content that we drop over there. Usually it's episodes that we weren't able to get into our regular rotation, as well as a few other things. And now, May, we are coming to, I can't believe it's almost summer already. So, May, these two will return with Disney John, and they are going to count down their top 7 film villains. And I know Amber's already having a very good time making her list. She's pointing that out.
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited for this episode. Y'all don't even know.
Oh my God, that's going to be so interesting. And the rest of May, we have some of our podcast friends joining us. Bill and Jason from the All 80s Movies podcast each are getting their own guest spots. Bill picked Darkman for us to review, and Jason picked District 9. And John Reed of the 30-something Movie podcast is joining us for a review of Solo, a Star Wars story. So come back for all that fun and goodness. Do yourself a favor and watch more Disney films. And remember, physical media is better than streaming. The Docking Bay 77 podcast is produced and edited by Dayton Johnson. Recorded with Rode Pod mics, the Zoom PodTrack P4, and edited on Audacity. Opening music provided by Eric Jason Brock. You can find him on YouTube and Bandcamp. Thank you for listening.